the ABC railway guide was left beside both dead women. It is the killer telling us the rules of the game.
Mr. Cust, is there something you want?
The success of my enterprise.
Would you mind if I joined you, Sir Carmichael?
Not at all, but it is quite wild out there.
Have I caused you some offense?
You're not who you say you are. Who the hell are you?
Empty shelves fill a dimly lit subterranean room with no natural light. At the end of an aisle stands a man with his back turned. He's wearing the familiar grey Homburg hat and overcoat of Hercule Poirot. His hands rest on a walking cane in front of him.
Mon nom est Hercule Poirot.
My name is Hercule Poirot.
Je suis un réfugié.
I am a refugee. A flashback to refugees arriving. England, 1914.
Are you joining family who are already here, or are family, wife and children joining you later?
Non.
Do you need a doctor?
Non.
And what is your profession?
An elderly woman drops a teapot behind him. The younger Poirot notices a police constable helping her.
Gendarme.
Policeman, he replies. John Malkovich, Rupert Grint, Andrew Buchan. Speeding over railway tracks in moonlit darkness, a mist hugging the ground. Lit up train windows speed by. Eamon Farron, Jack Farthing, Gregor Fisher, Tara Fitzgerald, Shirley Henderson, Bronwyn James, Freya Maver. Eve Austin, Anya Chalitra, Cyril Norrie, Suzanne Packer, Michael Schaefer, Christopher Villiers. Written by Sarah Phelps, produced by Farah Abushwesha, directed by Alex Gabassi. Agatha Christie's The ABC Murders. In his mansion block flat overlooking the Albert Hall, Poirot is with Sergeant Yelland, who's holding letters.
Where's the letter from ABC?
You have what I have.
The inspector isn't going to want all this.
I've no wish for them either. Take them.
What are you so twitchy for? You better not be doing your own thing. Crime won't like that.
You have ransacked my home and removed my personal possessions. Twitchy is the appropriate response.
All right, if I use your levy before I go.
No, it's not all right.
Yelland gives him a look.
Don't do yourself any favours, do you?
Yelland heads off, and Poirot steps out into the hallway to watch him leave. He's been hiding a packet behind his back. Moments later, Poirot carries the packet into his bathroom. Standing by the sink, he pulls from the packet a pair of ladies' stockings, then holds them up to inspect them. Other stockings are pegged up alongside their packets above the bath. Poirot teases apart the gossamer thin fabric so he can study the seams. The stately house Churston is bathed in sunshine. Inside, the young secretary Thora climbs up the red carpeted stairs with the post. She's about to knock on a room door when the noise from within makes her hesitate. She enters to find Sir Carmichael weeping by the window.
Sir Carmichael.
How disgraceful of me. What an appalling show. I'm so sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry for.
You are such a comfort to me, Thora.
She smiles, then her expression turns serious. Stepping intimately close, she lets her eyes travel down to his lips, then leans in and kisses him. Sir Carmichael pulls back.
What the hell are you doing?
I was just trying to be kind.
I love my wife. How can you live here all this time and not know that?
You've misunderstood me. I
give you a week to find another job and somewhere else to live. Consider this your formal notice of dismissal.
Sir...
Lady Hermione's asking for you, sir.
Thank you, Capstick. You have plenty of work to be getting on with, Miss Grey.
He walks out.
Miss Grey is here now. Someone's fallen off a pedestal.
Thora towers over Capstick and looks her up and down.
Piss off.
I've got my eye on you, girl.
Later, Thora marches out through the mansion's iron gates, then with her cheeks flushed, stops and takes a drag of a cigarette. She looks to the side and frowns when she notices a man nearby watching her. Tossing her smoke away, she walks off in the opposite direction. The man who's watching her is cussed. He takes a bite of a sandwich. Under a full moon, Sir Carmichael is out with his dog in the grounds.
Come on, just a short stroll. Stretch the legs.
With a drink and a cigar, he moves away from the house. Suddenly, the pug sits at his heels.
Come on, Wilbur, you're supposed to be going for a walk. Go on. Go on.
Moonlight glints on a spade, which is then picked up by a man. Sir Carmichael sips his brandy and puffs his cigar. The spade's blade is dragged across the lawn.
What's the matter with you? Silly old thing.
Sir Carmichael frowns and looks behind him. The spade is swung high, then is brought down with force. The brandy glass spills across the lawn. Sir Carmichael's bleeding from the head and clawing at the grass. Face unseen, the assailant shoves him over onto his back, then brings the spade down hard across his neck. At home, Poirot is looking at the letter C in the ABC railway guide. He looks up.
It's Mrs. Kirkham from across the hall. It's my daily woman's fault. I honestly don't think she can read. She just puts everything on the mantelpiece, whether it's for me or for someone else. She's incorrigibly stupid, but very good at dusting.
Madame, we are neighbors, yet you come to my door wearing that?
Oh, but it's not you we object to. It's all the others, the ones that breed like flies.
How may I assist you?
Well, like I say, my daily's fault. I only just saw it. Incredibly rude.
Having snatched the letter from her, Poirot immediately reads it in the hallway. Now the hammer of typewriter keys. The letter says 10th April, C for Churston, Chin Chin, ABC. Poirot checks his calendar and clock. It's the 10th of April and 10:30 at night. He dashes outside to the red telephone box across the street.
Churston. Coomside is the house. The name is Clark. Hurry.
At Churston, Capstick hears the whole telephone ringing and frowns. Franklin answers.
Churston 966.
Is this Coomside?
It is.
Is Sir Carmichael safe?
Who is this? What are you talking about?
It is Hercule Poirot. Somebody means him great harm.
Harm? Why?
Because his name is Carmichael Clark.
Who is it, Franklin?
Darling, can you ask Carr to come to the telephone?
He took Wilbur for his walk.
When?
Oh, I don't know. I was dozing. What is it?
Franklin strides out in his dressing gown.
Car?
Wilbur races up the steps.
Car?
Franklin stops and looks out across the gardens. Up ahead, he sees the handle of the spade protruding at an angle. A blood-spattered ABC railway guide lies open at the letter C next to Sir Carmichael's feet. Wilbur scampers inside.
Yes, there we are.
I was in the bath. Is there something wrong?
Sir Carmichael?
I have to call the police. I'm sorry, I have to call them right now.
A shocked Poirot lowers the phone from his ear, but keeps hold of the receiver for several moments before finally hanging up.
Terror, Grip Station!
Thank
Terror,
you.
Grip Station!
At the boarding house,
200 extra police constables will be patrolling the streets. But our question to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Force is this substantial enough in the face of the terror that ABC is wreaking across the country? Inspector Crome of Scotland Yard was unable to comment. The question on everyone's mind is, where will ABC strike next? Who and where is Dean?
while the other boarders eat breakfast, Cust is staring at a large, pus-filled boil on the back of Treadgold's neck.
My breakfast's not good enough for you.
Ignoring Mrs. Marbury, Cust continues to focus on the boil. As if feeling his gaze, Treadgold turns and looks at him. Cust realises everyone's looking at him.
Sorry?
I said, is my breakfast not good enough for you?
He looks down at the single fried egg and slice of buttered toast in front of him.
Looks delicious.
With the sour-faced Mrs. Marbury standing over him, Cust slices the egg in two. The yellowy yolk oozes out, then drips from his fork as he lifts it up. Mr. Treadgold and the other boarders are also watching him.
Chin chin.
Cust swallows hard, then reluctantly lifts the greasy, gelatinous egg into his mouth. Later, he violently throws it up in his bedroom sink. He leans heavily against the sink, looking ill. Inspector Crome is at Churston.
You think the killer wanted to get me? Why?
He is. Pardon me for being so blunt. A deranged sexual pervert. His victims are women. Asher, Barnard.
But my surname is Gray.
Perhaps he thought it was Cray. And mistook Sir Carmichael for you.
What about Capstick? Maybe the killer wanted to get her.
Inspector, how could anyone, even in the grip of depraved lunacy, mistake my brother for Miss Gray or Capstick?
Do any of you see any strangers? Anything or anyone unusual?
Poirot was here. I saw her. Poirot.
No, Hermione, darling, that was a long time ago.
Was it? Really? Oh, of course. Mes enfants.
That's right. What a party it was, eh?
Oh, I've been having the most terrible dreams.
All right, well, let's get you back to bed, Angel. Come on.
Is Carl coming home soon?
Come on. Come on.
Franklin helps Hermione away.
I'll get an officer to take your statements.
Crome leaves.
Isn't it time you packed, Miss Gray?
As Thora lights up a cigarette, Capstick and the other maids file out. In a church, Poirot sits in a pew and turns over a newspaper in which he's front page news.
God was pleased. Amen.
A priest is giving communion.
God was pleased.
Amen.
Poirot remains apart.
God was pleased. Amen. God was pleased.
Poirot stares into space and remembers the tearful, perspiring young man.
Je vous salue, Marie.
Coffee spills over the cup and saucer. The frightened villagers praying, then watching something outside. They recoil in fright. The coffee spills off the table. Back in the present, Poirot stands up and walks out of the church. The kindly-looking black priest watches him go.
Corpus Christi.
How come you never told the police? How come you let that man and those women be killed?
I did not let them be killed.
Well, that's what it says here. My dad died in Belgium. Private Eric Beddoes of the King's Infantry. Blown to bits in your shitty country that you couldn't even stay and fight for.
As Poirot strides away from the angry mob, he's suddenly whisked into a waiting taxicab by Franklin.
Your neighbour told me where you'd be.
To the driver.
Go.
What are you hiding from the police?
The young man spits on the departing car's rear windscreen. At the boarding house, Cust is polishing his shoes when he overhears Mrs. Marbury outside.
I'm sad, Lily. No one loves me. You don't love me, and I'll take care of you, don't I?
Lily sits peeling potatoes.
Will you sing me a song because I'm sad?
Cust's now standing at his window listening.
Why is it so that this longing for you follows wherever I go? In the roaring traffic spume.
He looks away with tears in his eyes.
Room. I think of you night and day, day and night.
Inside the typewriter, the neatly aligned metal letter arms stand side by side. The mechanism cranks into action. Typed on white paper, "Are you having fun yet? What's next? ... A barrage of letter Ds are then hammered out across the page. Poirot's in his flat with Franklin.
I wish I had been able to alert you sooner your brother would be alive, but I was not enough.
I don't hold you responsible, far from it.
How is Lady Hermione?
She's very frail. I wouldn't have left her if this wasn't so important. What is your opinion of Inspector Crumb?
I am not familiar with his methodology.
Well, I'm not convinced he's got one. But you do, though. So what do you think?
There is a connection between Bexhill and Churston because I visited both places, but I've never been to Andover, so perhaps the connection is a mere coincidence.
Crumb doesn't ask questions. I need you to ask the questions.
I don't think the inspector would appreciate that.
Cart's head was nearly taken right off his neck. My brother. You never thought or did a petty, cruel thing in his life. So I don't care what the inspector appreciates. I want this bloody man stopped.
What makes you think it's a man? Excuse me.
Hearing the letterbox, Poirot steps out into the hallway, leaving Franklin pacing by the desk and thinking. A framed picture on the wall catches his eye. It shows a blindfolded figure lying on a slab. Poirot returns to the room, holding a letter open in his hands. He reads it, then passes it to Franklin.
Mon cher Hercule, are you having fun yet? What's next?
Franklin lets the letter drop to the floor in disgust.
You ask the questions, and I will pay for your time.
The page is filled with row upon row of letter Ds. Later, Poirot standing outside, looking up at a city hotel. In a suite, Franklin is with Betty's sister Megan and Donald Fraser. He goes to answer the door. Poirot standing outside with his back turned.
Come in. You've met Miss Megan Barnard, I believe.
Mademoiselle.
And Donald Fraser.
Monsieur.
Mrs. Barnard isn't coping particularly well, so best left in peace. And, of course, poor Mrs. Asher's husband is in prison. Thor is just getting dressed. Ah. We've had something of a fracas at Coomside. Some of the maids have it in for Thor. It's just jealousy, I expect. But I've taken this room for her. It's been a horrible shock for the poor girl.
Franklin knocks on the interconnecting door.
Thora?
Thora steps out, now a glamorous young woman, her unruly curls smoothed into a sleek bob, her frumpy secretarial clothes replaced by an elegant burgundy dress.
You remember Miss Gray?
Mademoiselle Gray?
Thora bows her head demurely, then goes to take a seat on a sofa. Franklin sits down too, across from Megan, but Poirot and Donald remain standing.
Franklin says you don't think the killer is a man. Why not?
There is a layer of artifice in the letters, as if a woman were writing to give the impression of being a man, or vice versa.
Betty would never have gone off with another man. Never.
So Miss Barnard went to a beach hut and took her stockings off for another girl? I never thought Bexhill quite so racy.
Christ, Betty wouldn't have gone off with anyone. She loved me. We were in love.
Mes enfants, if we are to discover the killer, we must be honest about the nature and proclivities of the victims.
Who the hell are you calling a child? I'm not a child. I'm not some boy to be patronised.
Please, Mr. Fraser, it's just something that Monsieur Poirot says. Mes enfants, he's known for it. He means nothing insulting by it.
Well, I am insulted. We were told you were going to ask us questions, so get on and ask them.
Searching your memories, did any of you notice anything peculiar in the lead-up to the murders? No strangers? Nothing different in the behavior of the victims?
Thora shakes her head.
No, nothing strange, nothing different.
Mr. Fraser?
No, nothing different, nothing unusual. Is that it? Because the police asked exactly the same question, so we've come all this way for nothing. I feel sorry for you, Mr. Clark. You've wasted your money. I've wasted my time.
Donald storms out.
He's upset.
Megan goes after him and closes the door.
That went well.
Poirot looks thoughtful.
Donald, wait.
Mademoiselle, can you tell me what sort of person your sister might have met at the beach hut in the middle of the night?
It wasn't the kind of thing we discussed.
Could you tell me what stockings your sister wore?
No.
Returning to the suite, Poirot stops, struck by the sight of Franklin lighting Thora's cigarette, her hand gently touching his. Franklin walks away, then she turns and sees Poirot staring at her. Lying rigid on his bed, Cust's body is thrown into a violent spasm by an unseen force, his mouth open in a silent scream. His body suddenly released, and he lies there trembling. He starts to weep. On the table nearby is a newspaper. The front page headline reads, "Terror grips nation. After C, where and who is D?" Cust starts to fit again, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. Above the bed, an embroidered sampler says, "God seest thou." Andover. Poirot enters Mrs. Asher's shop, which is in darkness. A glass bottle lies broken on a shelf, and there are signs of looting. Goods are lying scattered across the floor. Poirot prods something with his walking cane, before turning and using the tip of his cane to ring the brass bell on the counter. He proceeds through the back to the living quarters. The dining table's being cleared, the cloth pushed to the side, with crumbs or dead insects littering the surface. Poirot stares at the table, lost in thought. In his mind's eye, he sees Mrs. Asher alive once again and smoking a cigarette. She exhales, then turns the page of a magazine that's lying open next to her china cup and saucer on the table. Wearing a gold band on her wedding finger, she then reaches down the side of the table and runs her hand down her leg towards her ankle, where the seam of her tan stocking has a horizontal bar stitched across it. Moving on, Poirot comes to stand in front of a mirror, his reflection partially obscured by the tarnished glass. Something catches his eye and he bends down. From the fire grate, he picks up a small fragment of paper. He holds it up in front of him, then turns it over. A handful of printed letters can be made out on one side, the FIN of finest and the TW of Twinkletoes. Poirot looks intrigued. He steps back through to the shop front. He notices a framed newspaper clipping on the wall and lifts it down. The headline reads, "Local lady's gift for surprise baby. Woman gives birth on refugee train." A flashback to the expectant mother lying on a bed. Poirot looks up, his eyes darting as he thinks. Inspector Crome is sitting waiting outside Poirot's flat when Poirot arrives home. Crome stands up, but Poirot passes him without acknowledging him and gets out his keys.
So despite what I said, despite me telling you point blank to stay out of this, Clark's got you on the payroll.
I did not withhold information from you. Do not tell lies about me to make yourself more popular.
I didn't say a bloody thing. They make up what they want, they always do.
Because of this, I have been spat at in the street.
Well, I've been spat at too. Happens to coppers.
Oh, so now I am a policeman, a copper even. How gratifying.
Don't twist my words. And never mind what it says about you. Look what it says about me. I can't fire my arse with both hands.
It's not what it says.
Well, might as well do. The hell?
Madame Asher was wearing new stockings. Betty Barnard was strangled with the same make of stockings.
And Carmichael Clark was a secret stocking wearer, was he? Had ladies' scanties on under his tweed suit. Keep that one out of the papers.
I think this is what is left of the packet the stockings came in. We need to identify it.
We and you think. It's a scrap of paper.
You have people. You must put them on it immediately.
First off, you don't give me orders. And second, yeah, I do have people. Top people. But they're a bit busy working on the letters to chase after a scrap of paper. They're trying to break the code because there must be a code.
There is a code. The code is me.
What?
I'm having a brandy. Do you want one?
You're offering me a drink.
Despite what I may think, Jab said you're a good man, so I am offering you a brandy. Do you want one, yes or no?
Jab said that. The code is you.
Chin Chin. In 1921, I had a cream tea at the Ginger Cat in Bexhill, where years later Betty Barnard was to become a waitress. In 1928, I attended Lady Hermione's birthday party in Coomside.
I know. She kept talking about you. Said you'd been there. Poor lady couldn't even remember her husband had died. But Andover, it doesn't fit the pattern.
I found this in Madame Asher's shop. It was framed. She'd kept it since 1914. It was precious to her.
You took evidence from a crime scene. What's wrong with you?
Read it.
train carrying refugees from Belgium was held at a siding, waiting for a driver. One of the passengers got tired of the long delay and his mother went into labour. Luckily for mother and baby, Mrs. Alice Asher, who owns a nearby tobacconist, was able to offer the newborn boy a full wardrobe of booties and shawls. It's very sweet, but what's it got to do with you? The baby was delivered by another passenger on the train, one M. Hercule Poirot, before continuing on its journey.
But I didn't know it was Andover. The night was dark, and no one thought to mention where we were.
This baby would be 19 by now. What was the mother's name?
Marie.
Her surname?
I didn't even ask. Wasn't important at the time.
This baby could be our man.
What if it isn't a man writing the letter?
Of course it's a bloody man. How do you know how to deliver a baby?
I've lived a long life. But you're right, Graham. The killer knows me, knows all about me. From the moment I arrived in this country, my entire life here, they know everything. And the next locale, the letter D, will also be a place I have visited. We know that the next target's name will begin with D. So to find them, let's make a list of all the places beginning with D that I have been to.
On the dark street outside, a tall, thin figure in overcoat and Homburg stands watching Poirot at his window. Now at Scotland Yard.
Dawlish, Deal, Didcot, Denmark Hill, Doncaster, Dorking, Dundee, Dynast, Dover, Doveholes, Downham Market, Duke Street, Dunrobin Castle and Dice. One of these stations, one of these cities, towns and villages is where ABC will be next. Go through the telephone directory. Go through the census. Find every person with a surname beginning with D.
Person? I thought you said the killer was after women.
Well, maybe I changed my bloody mind. Get on with it.
At the boarding house, Cust places a shilling in Lily's hand.
How long has she gone for?
A couple of hours. What's this?
Backgammon. Used to play a lot. Used to be good.
What happened?
I stopped being good.
Lily closes the board and sees it's monogrammed with his initials, ABC.
Oh, Mr. Cust. You're the killer. It's you.
I'm a travelling salesman. I sell stockings.
I'm only joking. The ABC's to do with the railway guide. I read that in the paper. And you'd have to be thick to leave that sort of a clue if it was actually a name. Still, if it was you, I'd get you to bump Mum off. Either down a flight of stairs.
Lily, murder is a crime. It's a sin against God.
I'm joking. Again. Now, sometimes, I've got to be honest, it seems like a really good idea. Make life easier.
Having stripped down to his underwear, he reaches for a stocking from under his pillow. Holding it between his hands, he then steps silently up behind her. She turns to face him, and with familiar ease, holds out her hands to receive the stocking.
Waste of a good stocking, if you ask me.
Nothing else ties us tight.
He kneels down in the middle of the floor. Then she comes to stand behind him and wraps the stocking around his eyes as a blindfold.
Tighter.
So what does the A and B stand for then, Mr. Cust?
Alexander Bonaparte.
Don't tell Mum that. She'll start ranting and raving about the foreigners. If she asks just how you're called Alexander, it's a good English name.
Having peeled off his vest, he runs his hands down his bare chest, then lowers his upper body to the floor in a Christ on the cross pose. His back is covered in angry sores.
Please, Lily. You let it out. The darkness. Make it stop.
In her red-heeled shoes, she steps up onto his back, whilst taking hold of water pipes above her head to support her weight. Then she positions the spike of a broken heel above the congealed blood of one of the wounds.
It needs to hurt.
She brings the heel down into the wound until a rivulet of fresh blood trickles across his back. Then she pulls herself up again.
Harder.
This time, she digs her right heel into a wound, slowly bringing down the front of her shoe and pressing down with her weight before pulling the heel out again. As she goes in with the left heel again, he releases his clenched fist. Poirot walks across a deserted, windswept beach, past the row of beach huts where Betty's body was found. Bexhill. Megan's peeling potatoes in the Barnard kitchen. She answers the back door to Poirot.
Mademoiselle, do you recognize this, the color, perhaps? Does it correspond to anything you might have seen on your sister's dressing table? The color of a packet of stockings?
I'm sorry.
Maybe your mother would know. Is she here?
Donald took her to Herstmonceux Castle for the day. There's a tea room, they do cakes.
Poirot takes back the paper fragment.
I haven't been completely honest about that night. I suppose I'm ashamed about it. We didn't agree to not say anything, Donald and me. We just... You see, he, Donald and me...
Had a prior understanding. I observed a tension. He will not look at you, yet you run after him.
After he took up with Betty, he kept coming round for his supper like he always had done, whether Betty was in or not. Mum loves him, you see. She's always wanted a son. Betty would never have married him. It was too much for me, so I used to sit in the kitchen.
In flashback.
Mum's gone to the pictures. She still put you a plate up, though. Feel free to eat it in the other room.
Oh, Megan, you are embarrassing yourself. Huh? Making out like this is everyone's fault. But if you made more effort with your hair, your clothes, be more go-getting, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. The man wants to feel good with a girl on his arm, not dragged down. You need an interest, a hobby. We should do a course or something. Look at Betty. She's learning civil service. Not because she wants to be a waitress, so she can see how real people behave for when we're both getting on in life. No, she's thinking ahead.
Betty's at the Palais. She's serving something all right, but I doubt it's silver.
Having put him off his dinner, she walks away. Donald stands up and briskly makes to leave, snatching his hat as he goes. At the seafront Palais, Donald charges in with Megan behind him. She nearly bumps into Cust, who's on his way out. She notices Cust putting on the grey Homburg hat. In the clubroom, Donald grabs Betty by her wrist.
Right.
Donald!
You're coming home with me.
Go, you dozy bastard!
You stay here. I won't marry you.
Oh, my broken heart.
In the present,
I wanted him to see I would have been a good wife. I would have been faithful. I wanted to rub his nose in it.
In these circumstances, that is entirely forgivable.
Really?
Yes.
he gets up to go.
I thank you for your help.
You mustn't think badly of Donald.
He is eating cake with your mother, while you, mademoiselle, grieving and alone, are peeling potatoes, so I will think what I please.
He leaves. When he pauses outside to put on his hat, Megan frowns and remembers the man at the Palais doing the same thing. She hurries to open the door.
There was a man at the Palais with the same clothes as you. He walked right past me.
A train hurtles along the coast, trailing a plume of smoke in its wake.
I'm told Lady Hermione believes she saw me at Coomside the day Sir Carmichael was murdered.
She gets very confused. I'll let you speak alone. She's looking forward to seeing you, but you must expect her to be most uncomplimentary about Thora, I'm afraid. The animosity seems to be the only thing keeping her going.
As Poirot contemplates the grand house, he remembers waiting in the wings 5 years earlier. Lady Hermione is about to blow out her birthday candles.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hermione. Happy birthday to you. Bravo.
Sir Carmichael looks excited as Poirot approaches Hermione.
Bon anniversaire, Lady Hermione.
Oh, I am such an admirer. Such an admirer. Are we going to have a murder? Please say it's going to be spectacularly grisly.
Mes enfants, ce soir, tonight, we have prepared a murder of unparalleled and macabre savagery, of reckoning and revelation.
Birthday murder. Birthday murder. Birthday murder. Birthday
For you, this is a game, but for me, it is my calling. I catch killers, actual killers. Tomorrow, I will hunt them again. I will follow their trails of blood, but mes enfants, tonight, blood will be our entertainment.
Oh.
A toast.
Birthday murder. Birthday murder.
Poirot raises his champagne glass to Hermione, who beams at him, exhilarated. In the present, she sits looking frail in her four-poster bed.
Don't come too close. I smell. It's in my throat, you see. Sometimes I can taste it.
Je suis désolé for all your sorrows.
Oh, I've been told Miss Gray is in an hotel. Franklin is like my darling car. He won't hear a word against that bloody girl. A pretty face and a sob story about being an orphan, and they are both putty in her hands.
Unsteady on her feet, she gets up.
Lady Hermione, I'm told you believed I came to the house not years ago, but recently.
Oh, the morphine plays tricks on me. Sometimes I forget that Carr is dead. Such cruel tricks.
She sinks onto a seat.
It was just a person. I was by the window. It gets the sun, which is supposed to be good for me. It's the same hat, the coat.
No, thank you. We don't buy anything at all.
But it was just a salesman.
Poirot looks out of the window.
Of course, I knew it wasn't you. But just for a moment, I was so happy. Poirot is here, I thought. Now we shall have fun. Like we did when we were beautiful.
She flashes him an almost embarrassed smile through her tears. Then he turns to look pensively out of the window again.
Did you ask Miss Gray about it?
I had another attack.
In flashback, Hermione vomits blood into a bowl while Capstick holds her tight. and Sir Carmichael stands nearby, looking worried.
And then Carl was killed, and I was so confused.
What did this visitor look like? The one you thought was me? Young, old?
I'm not sure. Thora was always waiting for me to die.